The Arrow of Time, Rumi, Relativity, and the Spiritual Experience of the Now. Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to Sufi Essence. In our lives, we are all captives of time. It is a relentless one-way river that pulls us from the past, through the present, and into an uncertain future. We feel its passage in the lines on our faces, the memories in our minds, and the anxieties in our hearts. We are either living in the prison of regret for what was, or the prison of fear for what will be. Our reality is defined by this constant forward march, what physicists call the arrow of time. But what if this relentless arrow is an illusion? What if time is not what we think it is? What if the great mystical poet Rumi and the genius physicist Albert Einstein were both pointing to the same profound and liberating truth? Today, we will embark on an extraordinary journey that unites the spiritual with the scientific. We will explore the concept of time through the lens of modern physics and the profound, timeless insights of Sufi wisdom. We will discover that the very nature of time is not what our senses tell us, and that the path to true freedom lies not in finding more time, but in escaping the illusion of time itself. This is a lecture on how to move from a prisoner of the past and future to an inhabitant of the eternal now. Part 1. The Scientific Paradox of Time. For centuries, our understanding of time was simple and intuitive. Time was a constant, universal clock ticking away for everyone everywhere at the same rate. But the world of physics, particularly in the 20th century, has shattered this simple picture. In his groundbreaking theory of relativity, Albert Einstein showed that time is not absolute. It is, in fact, a part of a four-dimensional fabric called spacetime, and it can be warped and stretched by gravity and speed. The faster you move, the slower time passes for you relative to someone who is standing still. The passage of time is therefore not a universal constant, but a subjective experience dependent on your frame of reference. This was a revolutionary idea, but it still did not solve the most fundamental mystery. Why does time only move in one direction? The laws of physics at their most fundamental level are symmetrical. They work the same whether you run them forward or backward. A movie of two billiard balls colliding looks plausible whether it is played forward or in reverse. But if you watch a video of a shattered teacup reassembling itself, you know instantly that the movie is being played backward. This is the arrow of time, the universal observation that time seems to have a direction. The scientific explanation for this is entropy, the second law of thermodynamics. Entropy is the measure of disorder in a system. So the law of entropy states that disorder in the universe can only increase. It's why a broken teacup stays broken, and a tidy room becomes messy over time. This is the scientific paradox of time. The fundamental laws of physics don't have a direction, yet our universe and our lives are relentlessly moving in one direction, from order to disorder, from the past to the future. This is the chasm that science struggles to cross, and it is here that we must turn to a deeper metaphysical understanding. Part 2. Rumi's Timeless Now, the Waqt. The great Persian mystic, Rumi, lived in a world without relativity or entropy, but he saw through the illusion of time with a spiritual clarity that is breathtaking. For Rumi, the linear passage of time, past, present, and future, was a construct of the ego, a way for the mind to keep us in a state of separation from the divine. He taught that all of reality and all of Allah's divine presence exists in a single, sacred moment that he called the Waqt time, or the eternal now. Rumi's poetry is a continuous and passionate call to wake up from the slumber of time and to live in this eternal moment. He wrote, "This moment is all there is," and in another place he said, "The past and the future are nothing but a dream. Let us not waste our time in dreams." For Rumi, the past is nothing more than a memory, a story that we tell ourselves. Future is nothing more than a potential, an imagined narrative that may or may not come to pass. It's the only thing that is real, the only thing that is tangible, the only thing that contains the presence of the beloved, is this sacred moment. Rumi's timeless wisdom offers a powerful spiritual solution to the scientific paradox of time. While science describes the physical reality of the arrow of time, Rumi describes the spiritual reality of the arrow of consciousness. The arrow of time pulls us forward into an uncertain future. The arrow of consciousness, when it is purified, pulls us inward into the eternal now. The goal of the spiritual journey, therefore, is not to travel forward in time, but to travel inward in consciousness until we find the center of our being, which is a state of timeless presence. Part 3. The ego's perception of time. The primary obstacle to living in the eternal now is the ego, or the nafs. The ego is the master storyteller, and its primary narrative tool is time. It is the ego that replays our past failures and successes, keeping us captive in a cycle of regret and nostalgia. It is the ego that creates an endless stream of anxieties and fears about the future, keeping us in a state of constant worry. The ego lives in a world of linear time because it needs a beginning, a middle, and an end to create its narrative of a separate individual self. Our minds, in a state of unconsciousness, are a slave to this egoic perception of time. We are constantly multitasking, planning and worrying, never fully present in the moment we are in. This state of constant distraction and mental chatter is the primary source of our spiritual and emotional exhaustion. We are running a race that we can never win, a race against the clock of our own making. The Sufi masters understood this, and taught that the path to peace begins with a conscious decision to dismantle the ego's narrative. It begins with the simple but profound practice of becoming a witness to our own thoughts. When we watch our minds replay a past memory, we can consciously remind ourselves that it is just a thought, and that the only thing that is real is this moment. When we catch ourselves worrying about the future, we can consciously bring our attention back to our breath, to the present. This is the first step in the spiritual alchemy of time, to turn the lead of our linear perception into the gold of our timeless presence. Part 4. The path to the eternal now. So, how do we practically apply this ancient wisdom in our modern, frantic lives? The Sufi path provides us with powerful tools to move from a state of being a prisoner of time to a master of the present moment. The two most fundamental practices for this are Dhikr remembrance and Muraqaba contemplation. Dhikr is the constant remembrance of Allah, the rhythmic repetition of a divine name, such as Allah or La ilaha illa Allah, is a powerful way to anchor our consciousness in the now. The sound and the vibration of the divine name act as a spiritual tuning fork, bringing our wandering minds back to the present moment. The ego's noise is silenced and the heart's voice is heard. This practice of Dhikr is not just a mental exercise, but is a way of life. It is the practice of turning every breath into a conscious act of remembrance, of making every moment a sacred act of presence. It is the practice of living in a state of constant prayer, not because we are speaking all the time, but because our entire being is a testament to the eternal presence of our Creator. Muraqaba is the practice of quiet contemplation and meditation. It is the art of sitting in silence and simply witnessing our thoughts and emotions without getting attached to them. In this state, we are not trying to stop our thoughts. We are simply observing them. We begin to realize that we are not the thoughts, but the timeless consciousness that is watching the thoughts come and go. This practice creates a gap between the ego's narrative of linear time and the soul's experience of the eternal now. It is a way of moving from the content of our minds to the timeless space in which the mind operates. Part 5. The lover's time. When whacked, becomes reality. The ultimate goal of this spiritual practice is to move from a state of conceptual understanding to a state of living reality. This is what Rumi and other Sufi masters describe as the lover's time. For the lover of Allah, time ceases to exist. The past is forgiven and the future is surrendered. The only reality is the presence of the beloved in the now. In this state, there is no longer a distinction between doing and being, between work and prayer, between the sacred and the profane. Every moment is a sacred moment, every breath is a sacred breath, and every action is a sacred action. This is not a state of being in a trance. It is a state of being fully and completely present. The awakened soul is no longer a slave to the ego's narrative. The awakened soul is a conscious inhabitant of the eternal now. In this state, a person can walk in the world with a profound sense of peace, a peace that is not dependent on the external circumstances. This is the peace that the Quran calls sakina, a deep tranquility that comes from a heart that has found its rest in Allah. The lover's time is a state of complete liberation from the spiritual bondage of the past and the future. This is the ultimate answer to the paradox of time. While our bodies and our physical world are bound by the arrow of time and the law of entropy, our consciousness, our soul, Ruh, is not. Our soul is a spark of the divine, and it exists in a state of timeless presence. The purpose of our lives is to purify our consciousness so that it can return to its natural state of being in the eternal now. Part 6. From Relativity to Reality. Now, let us bring the scientific and the spiritual together one last time. While physics has shown us that time is not what it seems, and that our perception of it is relative to our physical state, Sufi mysticism has shown us that our perception of it is also relative to our spiritual state. Both Rumi and Einstein challenged the common-sense notion of time, but from different ends of the spectrum. Einstein showed us that time is not absolute but relative to our physical speed and gravitational field. He showed us that the clock of a fast-moving person ticks slower than a stationary one. Rumi showed us that time is not absolute, but relative to our spiritual state. He showed us that the clock of a person living in the ego's narrative ticks frantically, while the clock of a person living in the eternal now has stopped completely. The spiritual truth is that the physical laws of our universe, while they seem to be a constraint, are in fact a profound reflection of a deeper spiritual reality. The illusion of linear time is a part of the divine design, a sacred school for the soul to learn the lessons of patience, gratitude, and surrender. But the ultimate lesson is that the universe is not just a stage for our lives. It is a profound reflection of a timeless, eternal reality, and that our purpose is to find that timelessness in our own hearts. Part 7. Conclusion. The arrow of time is a powerful force, but it is not the ultimate reality. The real reality is the eternal now, the sacred moment in which all of creation and all of divine presence exists. The path to freedom is not a path of escaping the world, but a path of embracing every single moment of it with a profound sense of presence. In this lecture, we have explored the scientific paradox of the arrow of time and entropy, Rumi's timeless wisdom of the waqt, the eternal now, the ego's role in creating the illusion of linear time, the Sufi practices of Dhikr and Muraqaba to master the present moment, the lover's time, where the eternal now becomes a living reality. The profound connection between the science of relativity and the spirituality of presence. The journey to understand time is not an intellectual one. It is a journey of the heart. May Allah grant us all the grace to live in the eternal now and to find the profound and unshakable peace that lies in a timeless heart. Watch, reflect, and share. Subscribe to our channel for more beneficial content.